Page by page, be a sage. Page by page, be a sage.
From an ancient age to the world today, align your mind and heart, be a sage.
Page by page, be a sage. Page by page, be a sage.
The books are the base to illuminate the dark. Fan the spark, be a sage. Page by page, be a sage. To brighten up your life, be a sage. Page by page, be a sage. Fan the spark, be a sage.
Page by page, be a sage. Page by page, be a sage. Page by page, be a sage. Page by page, be a sage.
Hare Krishna. Please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda. Welcome again, dear devotees, to Be a Sage, page by page. Upgrade your life by reading Srila Prabhupāda's books. An interactive webinar presented by the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust and the ISKCON Ministry of Education. And now, on with the show. The books that Srila Prabhupada wrote are an invaluable treasure. Their benefit is universal. Their worth has no measure. Please pay attention to the story of this soul's journey to the path of bhakti for Sri Krishna's pleasure.
A young soul sits in his home, phone in his palm, TV's on so he doesn't feel alone. It seems like the glow of the screens bring a dull light to the room but not warmth to the scene. He's trying to unwind, decompress and sit back, but he feels stressed, he can't clear his mind or relax. I need to get out. Out of this room, out of this house, out of this world of disquiet, anxiety, doubts. Some fresh air, a few deep breaths in the park under the trees before it closes at dark is just what I need. So he takes a walk. He'll sit at his favorite spot, connect with nature, be alone with his thoughts. The air is crisp, the breeze carries the scent of rain. He takes a seat and hears someone whisper his name. There's no one around, but a man feeding some birds, bread in his hand, eyes down, not speaking a word. He looks in surprise as there's a book at his side. The pages stir with the wind and the softest of sighs. It calls to him. What could this be? No one claims it when he asks. I guess I'll take it with me. He gets to his feet, book tucked in his coat, as he heads to the street, intrigued by this mystery. Set into motion by this young soul's need, the eternal Prince of Beauty has planted the seed. That night, under the light of the moon, this soul's mind and heart are consumed by the wisdom and spirit of this text. It connects him line direct to the source of this world and the next. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hidden within these books lay keys to unlock inner perfection, to live life in service through a spirit of self-reflection, connection to the divine source, single-minded direction, to the Lord of the heart, this soul's eternal affection. The book lifts his consciousness. His mind is refined to a state of peace and introspection while he seeks the divine. Reading with intention and discipline, his life realigns with the depth and clarity as his voyage unwinds. Reading summons from the spiritual realm sacred sound. Embraced within his heart, he deepens his practice. Progress, day by day, page by page, prayer after prayer, and his life is changed. The years pass, and the light that ignited his transformation smolders within the depths of his soul, though he never loses sight of the goal. The weight of obligation slows his determination, a subtle burden that slowly wears away his control. He works in the world, doing his best to live with integrity and spiritual consciousness. Though his intentions are good, he's not doing all that he should. He finds that his discipline is being put to the test. But as he sits in his daughter's room, his mind turns back to the magic of that night. The mystic sages, the wisdom, the light, spiritual discipline, service, interdimensional flight to a realm of love and devotion, every soul's birthright. A fresh day, inspiration renewed, the family comes together to clean the temple room. It clears the mind and cleanses the heart. Excitement is in the air. This is a beautiful start. Service to God, Krishna, and chanting his name. Devotion to Prabhupada with gratitude that he came to deliver this message through these books and the scripture, to paint the spiritual world in a glorious picture. A line unbroken, age through age, from an ancient era to the modern day. His daughter today becomes tomorrow's sage. She starts her journey at the park, page by page, page by page.
And now, to teach the 3 keys to consistent reading of Srila Prabhupada's books, please give a warm welcome to His Grace, Vaisesika Prabhu.
Vanchakalpataruscha kripasindhabhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances millions of times to the lotus feet of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who so compassionately came to this world and left behind him his Vani in the form of his books, so that for generations, everyone can take advantage of his association and hear his direct instructions and the mood through which he imbibed the teachings of his own spiritual master and all the acharyas before him. I offer my respectful obeisances to all of you who have joined today, because who would join such a seminar, which is very specifically about reading Srila Prabhupada's books? Only those who are in the topmost position. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that's very rare for someone to take to spiritual life in the first place. What to speak of someone who's refined his or her association and knowledge and shraddha to such a point that he or she is fixed on a goal in the spiritual world and is following a tradition. So thank you very much, everyone, for your full dedication to this process. I'm a recipient of Srila Prabhupada's books because when I started inquiring about the absolute truth in earnest, the books appeared in my life and they changed me forever. It was very interesting because I had read as many books as I could find in my library, in my house, anyone I could borrow books from. And until I read Srila Prabhupada's books, I wasn't settled. And when I heard his voice through his books, I could hear home, and I understood that there is a perfect sound coming from the spiritual world to inform us how to go back to Godhead. Millions of other people have felt that, heard that, and it's our mission in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness to show mercy to others. Srila Prabhupada's standard was very high. Patanjali talks about ahimsa as being the topmost yama. It supersedes all the others, like the footprint of an elephant. It covers all the other footprints of other animals. Prabhupada's definition of ahimsa is different from other sages who say, just don't do harm. Prabhupada's definition was that you have to do good. And Burijan Prabhu yesterday told me that Prabhupada one day said to him, why are we distributing all these books? And then he said, because it is the distribution of knowledge. It is the distribution of knowledge. My first encounter with Prabhupada in San Francisco, when I was introduced with the Sankirtan team, was very meaningful and profound as far as reading Srila Prabhupada's books, because although we were book distributors, Srila Prabhupada looked at us with a penetrating glance and he said, you must also read my books. And I then was impressed that he really cared about us. He wanted us to take full advantage of these books. He said, I've not written them just for selling. I want you to read them fully. I want you to become pure devotees and to go back to Godhead. And just in that statement, I could understand that the potency to do all of those was present in Prabhupada's books. So throughout the various eras in ISKCON, when there have been various projects going on, I always had that voice, Srila Prabhupada's statement in my mind, you must also read my books. And today I'd like to share with you some of my realizations about how to stay in the reading of Srila Prabhupada's books and why to stay in the reading of Srila Prabhupada's books, and why also by distributing them, we gain more impetus to read them. If that sounds okay to you, then I'm going to start. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda. I've distilled the points into three categories, and this is Prabhupada's word, diligent. He said, diligently read my books every day. And these are the three keys that we've conceived. The first one is change the channel, change your life. Every one of us is focused in one way or another from moment to moment on hearing something, seeing something. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Purusha prakriti stohi bhukte prakriti jan gunan karanam gunasangosya sarasad yoni janmasu. Because of our association, which really means the channel we're listening to life after life, we're attaining good or bad situations. It's all bad, actually, when we're listening to material sound because we're taking material bodies one after another. So what is the channel? It's what you choose to read. This is the most important of all aspects, and that is that we have volition, and we have to strengthen our will to read, to hear the right channel. Of course, the Sri Upanishad says that one result is obtained by taking in transcendental knowledge, and then a completely different result comes from the culture of nescience. Nescience abounds. It's all around us. It comes from every direction. But if we deliberately cultivate spiritual knowledge, the result is unimaginable. We can actually realize the supreme personality of Godhead through that kind of sound vibration. Famous musician in the 1980s, and a phrase that I picked up years ago that always reminds me of how important it is to take one's will and the way we focus our energy seriously, and that is, I don't know what you expect staring into the TV set. Like, what do you expect out of your life if you just waste your attention and let it go down a screen and it's gone forever and you'll never get it back? So what do you expect will happen from a mindless activity? So this is the admonition. If you don't like what you're being subjected to, change the subject. That's the only power we really have as living entities, as jivas, is to change the subject. And that's up to us completely. Also, we can keep in mind that, as Prabhupada calls us, walking tabernacles. It means like we're a container. We're a self-contained unit as human beings. We have our senses, we have our mind. It collects information through the senses from the outside world. It gets stored. Everything we see, everything we hear gets stored within the conscious, subconscious mind, the chitta. It's there life after life. Content and content are spelled the same way. And what my content is, due to where I'm focusing my attention, what I'm reading, will determine my level of contentment in life. What I hear determines where I am now. That's why if you look at the directions, you'll find out, where am I going? Where have I been? Where am I now? And it's all because of what I'm hearing and what I've heard. So there's storm drains here in my local town of Burlingame, and they have placards on the top of each one that says no dumping drains to bay, and it has a picture of a fish, because even miles away from the San Francisco Bay, if you pour something down the drain, it goes eventually into the bay. So similarly, whatever drains into my ears, whatever I allow in, goes into the bay of my heart. And that determines the direction I'm going in life. So here's the best channel. Srila Prabhupada's books, they're the primal, foundational sound of the Krishna Consciousness Movement. And when I tune into that channel on a regular basis, then everything becomes clear. Everything gets solved. I know as a manager that there are so many problems to deal with every day. It's impossible to actually process them all unless I read Prabhupada's books. And as soon as I start reading the purports, I think everything is going to be okay and all the pieces can come together. And I can't imagine facing the amount of complexity that people face every single day without having that voice of the messenger of Krishna, Śrīla Prabhupada, speaking through his purports. So this is the way to reorganize one's life, to overcome any of the obstacles that might be there in life. Before I go to the next slides, I'm just going to take a couple of reflections, just so I can feel your presence out there, besides a few glowing screens here, and see what you are thinking, or if you have any questions up to this point.
Hare Krishna. So if
Yes.
you have a question or a reflection, please do raise your hand. There's a raise the button functionality. And when you raise your hand, I will be calling out your name and then unmuting you.
Thank you, Priya. Well, I really loved the point of dumping, no dumping drains today. And you had said this earlier. So I always try to remember what I'm exposing myself to. It works for some time, but then after that, I tend to forget it. So how do I always remember what that I should be super careful about what I'm exposing myself to? Thank you.
Well, life is a series of little victories when we're trying to head in the right direction. We may have a few streaks where we're doing really well and then we slip and go the other way and hear something else. But until we have tastes, Krishna says, it'll be natural for the mind and senses to pull in a different direction. So in the beginning, we have to put together as many victories as we can. Victories by listening carefully and hearing when we can, often compared to the cycles of the weather, because we need rain and the soil's parched, and when the rain comes, you take advantage of it. The soil takes it in and then it goes below the earth and it stores in an aquifer below, and then when it's not raining, you can draw on it. So whenever you get the chance, remember that maybe my mind won't cooperate later, so I should really take advantage now as much as I can. And gradually, as Prabhupada used to tell devotees, he told one of my godbrothers who was saying that that his practice was intermittent. He said, one day you will walk. He said a baby tries and falls down and gets back up again, but gradually it develops its own strength. Yeah. Thank you for your question. Thank you very much.
Next.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. Always
Hare Krishna.
I like the point where he said, what I hear is what I am now. Actually, we see so many examples in Srimad Bhagavatam, also Prahlad Maharaj. And medically also it is proven that hearing is the first thing that develops in the embryo, and it is the last thing that goes out while we die. So, I mean, that is so this sentence is very profound.
Oh, that's nice. So we can be really attentive to that channel. In fact,
yes.
Anavriti Shabdat, the Brahma Sutras say that by the sound vibration, we'll go to the spiritual world and never come back again. We become uncovered by that. That's the main process. That's the channel. Thank you very much. Excellent.
Next we have...
We'll take one more. Put that
have,
mic a little closer to you.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Next we have Shameshwari Prema.
Hare Krishna. You're on mute, I think.
Okay, should be okay now. Hare Krishna. The point I liked was what I choose to read, and what I hear when I saw that was, how am I also reading the circumstances around me? How am I reading people? How am I reading things that are happening to me? Because that's also informing what I'm taking in. And I was wondering if maybe you could elaborate on that.
Yes. We don't see the world the way it is. We see the world the way we are. And when we are Shastra Chakshu, that means that we're able to see through the eyes of Scripture, then we see the world differently than other people. The mind creates a lens through which we see the world, and it's shaped by the modalities, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And so by reading Srila Prabhupada's books every day, we start to see through his eyes, and we see through the eyes of the previous acharyas. And instead of through the distorted lens of whatever I've heard, the distorted lens, which is affected by the modes of nature. So this is an inevitable consequence of hearing from Srila Prabhupada's books, is that we'll develop that kind of corrected vision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go back to a few more slides. Okay, upgrade your reading, upgrade your life. It's a simple formula. If you upgrade your reading, and this is Shastric evidence, this verse from Nectar of Instruction that everybody knows, tanama rupa charitari sukirtananu smrityo kramena rasana manasi niyoja. This verse, according to Rupa Goswami, is the essence of all advice. And that is, you should use your full time to hear, chant, and remember Krishna. And then, by that, tishtan raje tananuragi jananugami, you'll find yourself following very eagerly in the footsteps of the residents of Vraj, just by hearing. And in his purport, Prabhupada describes, he gives a summary of the instructions of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and says that in the neophyte stage, one should dedicate oneself fully to hearing. So one of the main practices in our Krishna Consciousness Movement is to daily read Srila Prabhupada's books and hear them. Sadyo hridyavarudyatetra kritibi shushubhish takshanat. Now, Krishna likes it too, because the Bhagavatam at the outset says that when you listen to the vibration of the Bhagavatam, then Krishna stays in your heart, he won't leave. He becomes tied. Pranaya rashanaya, Tritangar Padma. The Bhagavatam says he becomes tied in your heart by the ropes of love. So what you're doing when you give attention to hearing Srila Prabhupada's books is you're showing your love for Krishna. Giving your attention is love. Deciding to hear Bhagavatam rather than anything else. And Krishna is so attracted to the vibration of the Bhagavatam and to the devotee who's hearing it, he stays. Sadya vrudyate. Sadya hrid, very immediately, hridi, he comes into your heart and he doesn't leave. He won't leave the heart of the devotee who's hearing. So books are the basis of our movement, and Prabhupada said many, many times that these are the foundation stone. In various ways he says it. In this quotation he says, these are the foundation stone of our movement. And all of my students should read our books very diligently, at least 1 or 2 hours daily. At least 1 or 2 hours daily. That's a kind of samadhi, to be able to take the time to go that deeply within Prabhupada's books, unbroken attention. And that means reading, taking time, scheduling it. I'd like to ask devotees how many hours you get in your area every day. Here in California, they've allotted us 24 hours in one day, but I just wanted to check with others and see what they've given you in your area. Divyangi, what do they give you in New York?
24.
How many? 24.
24.
Eric, what about in Tennessee?
Yes, we have 24 hours here as well.
Okay, this is sounding that maybe that's the norm everywhere. So we all have 24 hours in a day, and then it's really up to us to choose how to use those 24 hours in a day. And if we budget it, just as we budget money from our income, we say, where am I going to spend this? We budget it to read Srila Prabhupada's books. Then the result of that reading will show in our countenance. It will expand the understanding of Krishna consciousness within our heart. I want to read to you one of my favorite purports in all of Prabhupada's books. It's in the Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila. It's a very short purport, Adi 149. And it's Prabhupada's commentary on Krishna's verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami bhuti yogam tam yena mam upayantite. Please listen carefully. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Purport: this verse of the Bhagavad Gita 10:10 clearly states how Govindadev instructs his bona fide devotee. The Lord declares that by enlightenment and theistic knowledge, he awards attachment for him to those who constantly engage in his transcendental loving service. This awakening of divine consciousness enthralls the devotee, who thus relishes his eternal transcendental mellow. Such an awakening is awarded only to those convinced by devotional service about the transcendental nature of the personality of Godhead. They know that the supreme truth, the all-spiritual and all-powerful person, is one without a second and has fully transcendental senses. He is the fountainhead of all emanations. Such pure devotees, always merged in knowledge of Krishna and absorbed in Krishna consciousness, exchange thoughts and realizations as great scientists exchange their views and discuss the results of their research in scientific academies. Such exchanges of thoughts in regard to Krishna give pleasure to the Lord, who therefore favors such devotees with all enlightenment. What that means is, when we come together with Prabhupada's books, and you can do this by sitting next to the full set of Prabhupada's books, and then start reading with your colleagues. And when you come to a point that you find to be interesting, discuss it. And when you find a point within the purport that's interesting, you discuss it and you follow to other books too. So, oh, this reminds me of something from the Bhagavad Gita, and you'll pull out the Bhagavad Gita and read from there. And in that purport, you'll find something from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and you can go there. And this is the kind of discussion of the Shastra that ties together all the various concepts so that one becomes very clear about the philosophy, and also it pleases Krishna. That kind of assembly where you just stay together for a while and hear and listen to Prabhupada's voice and then discuss it as scientists do when they're saying, oh, I have a theory I'd like to tell you about. And the other one's, yes, please tell me. And they go on speaking like this. This is the main method for fortifying our own bhakti. Go ahead, Priya Kishori, what are you going to say? Did we have someone else?
Yes, we have a few other questions that have come.
Let's take two right now, and then I'll keep moving.
Yeah, sure. So we have a few devotees who have asked questions here. One is from Inner Spark. I'm not sure their full name, but they say, just like we have some standard of chanting 16 rounds, about 1.5 hours of chanting every day, what should be the ideal everyday reading time?
Well, we just read the quote from Prabhupada. He said 1 or 2 hours a day. So if you read that and you take it up, like Prabhupada said when he got an instruction from his Guru Maharaj at Radhakund, who told him, if you ever get money, print books. And then he said later, I have taken it up from his mouth that he very much likes books. So what did Prabhupada do? He just dedicated himself to writing books, printing books, distributing books, because he said, I took it from his mouth. So you can take that from Prabhupada's mouth. 1 or 2 hours a day is a nice formula. He said it, you can take it. And if you take it, you'll be empowered. Why not? You still get 23 hours after that to do whatever you want. Not everything, but go ahead, Priya.
We also have one more small question, which is from Gokula Tarini Dasi, and she asks, when you refer to the vibration of Srimad Bhagavatam, do you mean vibration of the shlokas, or does that include the translations and purports?
That's not a small question. That's a huge question. The purports, for instance, from the original Vedas, we have the Puranas, which are really the purport to the Vedas. And from the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have commentaries from Sridhar Swami, from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who are giving their realized commentary. And actually, recently I've been studying what is the origin of many of these points that they make. And it's actually, Burijan Prabhu sent me yesterday a quotation showing how it's actually coming from their own personal realizations. It's probably an obvious point. I just wanted to verify it from various statements in the Shastra. And so we're getting the purport there. So it's both, but we can't do without Srila Prabhupada's purports or the purports given by the previous acharyas, which are all synthesized in Prabhupada's writings. So when we're reading Srila Prabhupada's books, what we're getting is the perfect synthesis of the voices of all the previous acharyas. So it's both. When we're talking about that, we read them together. You read the verses and you read the purports. At some times, you can read just the verses to memorize them, to hear them over and over again, but you have to go back or simultaneously read the purports because they are the transcendental realizations or ecstasies, as Prabhupada said, were his writings of a pure devotee. And we need that to understand and have context. Priya, I'll take one more.
Yes, we have a question from Ajay Nitaidas, and his question is, does becoming a good listener and reader make us judgmental? For example, when Mother Parvati judged Chitraketu and cursed him, do we judge devotees when we become knowledgeable?
We should remain humble. Srinadapi sunichena. In fact, those who are filled with knowledge are like trees that are full of fruits, and you'll notice that those fruit trees are bowing down. Their limbs are almost touching the ground, like our peach tree this year. There were so many peaches that the branches almost broke, and they were touching the ground. So if someone's actually getting knowledge, then such a person will become more and more humble and bow to others, because the more you know you don't know. Neophytes, those who have utsahanmayi, or early enthusiasm, when somebody learns to play the piano, they take their first lesson and then they tell their friends, okay, I'm the maestro now, get out of my way. But those who are actually getting contact with spiritual realization understand that I'm insignificant. I'm the servant of everyone. Priya, I'm going to go to the next couple of slides.
Yes, Prabhu.
All of my students should read our books diligently for at least 1 or 2 hours a day. All the devotees, brace yourself for this one. It's very powerful, and it's indicative of Srila Prabhupada's mood about reading his books. All the devotees connected with the Krishna Consciousness Movement must read all the books that have been translated, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and others. Otherwise, after some time, they will simply eat, sleep, and fall down from their position. Thus, they will miss the opportunity to attain an eternal, blissful life of transcendental pleasure. So let's take a second here. If you have a pen or paper available, or your phone that you can write on, make a decision to read Srila Prabhupada's books every day. Just write it down. Write down your decision on a piece of paper. And then later I'd like you to make that visible somewhere, like to put it on your desk, tape it to a mirror somewhere that you look every day. Does that sound okay? If you can give me a thumbs up, I'd appreciate it. Okay, we have a few thumbs up there. So take a minute, just really commit it to paper that I've decided to read Prabhupada's books every day. Try writing that down and see how it feels. Does your mind revolt and say, well, you can't do that. You owe me screen time. I want to talk Prajalpa. How am I going to do that if I read Prabhupada's books? My mind might say. I want to hear the 24-hour news cycle and find out how the world's burning at every second. You can find that out by reading Prabhupada's books. Have no fear. Everything's there. All the news, all the intrigue, all the salacious details of affairs, it's all in Prabhupada's books. It's all in the Bhagavatam. So if you write it down, it starts to transfer your intention to a manifest form. It's coming from the subtle to the gross level of your ink on paper. It's already started to manifest. Thank you, everyone, for doing that. So now, let's talk about how. The first section was change the channel, change your life. We talked about why we are where we are now It's because of what we've been listening to, what we've been reading, the sound that we're allowing to come into our mind and our heart. So how do I get into this most intimate of services? A connection with a pure devotee, Śrīla Prabhupāda, under whom I've taken shelter in this Krishna Consciousness Movement. How do I do it? How? It sounds okay. Maybe it's for others, maybe not me. Page by page. Reading Srila Prabhupada's books every day is a prerequisite for knowing him and for advancing in spiritual life. So we actually have to make voluntary life changes. We call this the VLCs. You are human, you can decide. You make the voluntary life change because you're the agent of your own improvement. And here are the two elements that are necessary: knowledge and practice. That will move you to your destination. And remember that there's no soul that's permanently unqualified. Everyone can rise in due course of time. And remember, even if you're inept, even if you're not very good at it, at least show up, because there's magic in just being there for the reading. So here's one of the obstacles after we've surveyed many devotees around the world and asked them, what's the main obstacle? I don't have time. Here's breaking news for those of you who may be missing it. It's not time we lack, it's taste. And we only get a taste by taking time. This unlocks and disposes of this particular obstacle that I don't have time. We already found out we all have 24 hours, at least in the ones we interviewed. It may be different in Iceland or something. But we all get the same amount of time. So it's not time, it's taste. And if we want to taste, why do some people read more than others? Because they have a taste for it. How do you get a taste? You have to take the time. So you have to budget some time to start. Another one. I can't understand Srila Prabhupada's books. Srila Prabhupada said he couldn't understand his guru when he first heard him. But he stayed. And that's the reason Srila Bhaktisiddhanta noticed him. At his initiation, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, I marked him. He likes to hear. He does not go away. So if you want to be recognized, you could stay there and listen. There was a Brahmana in South India that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met, who is every day reading the Bhagavad Gita. But he couldn't read. He just did the best he could. He hacked away at it, and everyone was laughing at him. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw that this Brahmana was crying when he was reading, and he asked him, why are you crying? And he said, my guru told me to read this every day, but I can't read. He said, then why are you crying? He said, because I think of Krishna when I'm doing this, that he drove the chariot for Arjuna. And he's so kind to his devotees. So I can't help but cry when I think of Krishna and holding this Gita and trying to read it. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took that Brahmana with him. He said, you have actually understood the Bhagavad Gita. So you don't have to be a great scholar, Sanskritist. You just have to have a little sincerity and try to read Prabhupada's books. I procrastinate. Anyone ever procrastinated here? One person, Radhakripa Prabhu, Priya Kishori. I can only see a few of you. Procrastination is a way that we're held back from many great endeavors in life, but start with one page. Just say, I'll read one page every day. Procrastination often happens because I can't do everything, I won't do anything. Doesn't matter because it's a transcendental process. You read one page. What about distractions? I recommend get a do not disturb sign. It's a very deliberate way to mark your time to read Prabhupada's books. You can make one, you can buy them online. I have several. I take them with me when I travel. Because when I put up my do not disturb sign, I'm serious about finishing my pages for the day. And when you start to develop that kind of discipline by putting up the sign, everyone will respect it and say, oh, he or she is doing his or her time now to read Prabhupada's books. The do not disturb sign is up. But you have to do that. You have to mark your space and time so that people will respect it. The next is to write down your goals. And you just did that a second ago. And how did it feel to write anything down? Let's just check in and see if any of you wrote it down, your intention, and how it felt when you wrote it down. Could we get any feedback on that? Well, let's see. Kamala's got a nice book there. She wrote hers in. Who else wrote it down? If you could tell us. Oh, look at that. Radhakripa. I didn't know you were a calligrapher. You have so many hidden talents, and now I know we're going to be calling on you. Okay, Bhakti Eric, what did you write? Can you let him in the room for a second and tell us what you wrote?
I wrote, I will read Prabhupada's books every day, at least 1 or 2 hours. This will make my life transcendental and blissful. Jaya Prabhupada.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can we hear one more? Lajasila said, it felt empowering. That's amazing because it's such a simple thing, isn't it? To decide something and write it down. It feels empowering, she says. Wow, amazing. Does somebody else, one more person, want to share? How did it feel to write down, I'm going to read Prabhupada's books every day? Or if you write it in the present tense, it tells your mind this is something we just do. I read Srila Prabhupada's books every day. I read Srila Prabhupada's books 1 hour every day. Or at least, that's a good clause to throw in.
I felt like Prabhupada is so happy. I could feel that happiness that Prabhupada feels by a determination, by writing it down, that we'll read his books.
This is such a nice point, Gandharvika. Thanks for bringing it up. Because this is very personal. Spiritual life is personal. Prabhupada put his life and soul into writing his books. How does he feel when we take the time to read them? In fact, here's something that I've thought of. And that is that I can't ever write like Prabhupada wrote in quality or in volume. However, I can try to follow in his footsteps and try to read with as much enthusiasm as he wrote. That's something I could try to emulate. And so Prabhupada regulated his life in such a way that he would have as many hours as possible in a day to write his books. He got up at midnight. He just went to bed for a couple hours to dream about Krishna, and then he'd get up and he'd start writing out of his samadhi in ecstasy. Then he'd start writing again the purports. And what if I tried a little bit to emulate that in the reading? Then I'd feel this personal connection with Prabhupada. Were you going to say something more, Gandharvika? Okay. Hare Krishna. Okay, I'm going back in. So it's important to write down your goals. His goals are potent. My old friend Paramahamsa wrote that. I always keep these 3 words with me. Goals are potent. So write down your goals. Number of pages, number of minutes and hours. The more specific you are, the more you'll be driven, because the human mind is like a heat-seeking missile. As soon as it sees a goal, it wants to go after it. And you will, even from your subconscious mind, be going after that goal. Make the books available. Some homes have a television in every room. Put a set of books in every room of your house if you can. But one trick that I use is to keep the books that I'm reading and I intend to read every day out in a place where I can see them. That's my stack where I'm reading from every day. My friend Divyanga does this in Alachua. He keeps a book stand, and on it he has all the books that he's going to read the next day. So when he starts his morning program after Mangalartik, chanting his rounds, then he takes out each book in succession, and he'll read Chaitanya Charitamrita for a set number of pages. I think it's 20 or 25. And then he goes to the Bhagavatam and he reads his chapter there. And then he'll chant a chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and it's lined up. So line it up. Facility means to make things easy for yourself, because the mind will find any excuse and say, well, the books weren't there, I can't do it, I'll do something else. Carry a book with you. I took with me on a trip to Mexico a few years ago this copy of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's a little worn because I carry it with me wherever I go. And I was able to read the whole Adi Leela during my trip in Mexico because we had a long car trip to the Sankirtan spots we were going to. And I just kept reading out loud, and all the devotees in the van were listening. And I made such huge project, and everyone was in ecstasy. So if you bring a book with you in your bag, then when the music stops and someone says, I'm going into the post office, and you know they're not going to be back for another few hours, then you can start reading and just keep the vibration going. It's not, Prabhupada writes, it's not that because one has once finished Bhagavad Gita, he should not hear it again. We should hear again and again. So it's not an academic exercise. It's a devotional exercise, and Prabhupada's books are as deep as the ocean. I guarantee you, if you try to plumb the depths of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Nectar of Devotion, you won't come to the end of it. Even if you try strenuously, diligently, the way Prabhupada wrote his books, to give the same kind of energy to reading them, you won't come to the end of it. You'll get more taste, and you'll want to read it again and again, and still you'll see that I haven't quite touched this section or that section. Stay focused, and you'll see how deep it is. So this word assimilate is something Prabhupada used when it came to his books. It comes from the Latin absorbed. And he said, you first assimilate what you've got. Okay. First assimilate what you've got. So there was a conversation on a morning walk, and it was in India. And there was a conundrum and an argument going on in the temple. Because when devotees first started coming to India, they discovered that there are other books available. For instance, at the Gaudiya Math, one could buy Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's books. There were some translations. And the temple president there, Achyutananda Prabhu at the time, had told the devotees apparently that don't go there, don't buy the books. And some of them had said, wait a minute, these are books by the previous acharyas. And then there was an argument about what to do, so they brought it to Śrīla Prabhupāda. And they said, did one devotee, Prabhupada, you said that we shouldn't read the books of the previous acharyas. And Prabhupada said, I have said? I have not said. I have said you should read the books of the previous acharyas. And then they explained what was going on, why they were asking this question. And Prabhupada said, no, I have said first assimilate what you have. Because there are many, many books, and especially nowadays there are more and more books. They're very good books, many of them. However, assimilate what you already have, he said. Why pile up so many, many books that you can't read? And also, he wanted us to specialize in particular books, like become very expert at Bhagavad Gita as it is. Know it backwards and forwards. Like I know my godbrother Hari Vilas up in Seattle, he he has the same Bhagavad Gita he's had since he joined the movement. He carries it with him everywhere. It's practically sleeps with it at his head, and it's his life and soul, that book. And he knows where everything is in the Bhagavad Gita because he's gone deeply within it. So Prabhupada's point was assimilate, absorb it all. And if you collect too many things, then your mind becomes many-branched. And therefore, I say reading is not academic, it's devotional service. We're not doing it to regurgitate information or just to get a degree. Although I'm also pursuing a Bhaktivedanta degree now. I got my Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti, what's the next one? Bhakti Vaibhav, and now working on the Bhaktivedanta because it keeps me closer to the books. But reading is not an academic exercise. It's not about getting a degree. It's about hearing from Prabhupada and hearing from Krishna and the great devotees. So remember, this is a very personal process. These books connect us to the many facets of Prabhupada's personality, and this is an important point because, as Rabindra Sarup Prabhu likes to say, there's the philosophized Prabhupada, what some people think Prabhupada is according to the categories of information they may have collected from the database. But actually, the way to really get to know him is to read all of his books, all the way through, all of the purports, everything complete. Then you'll get a much clearer idea about the multifaceted personality that he is, a multifaceted, transcendental personality. And this is an intimate way to know devotees. Because how much can you get to know someone in person? But if the author writes down his or her realizations in a book and you read it, you're actually getting more than if you just approach them on the street or talk to them in a room. You're hearing exactly what they think about everything. And oftentimes people think, well, Prabhupada's very conservative about a particular thing, or he says this one thing that maybe doesn't jive with modern culture. But if you keep reading, you'll find that there are counterbalancing statements. Every personality on this earth has multifaceted personality. Prabhupada just happens to be fully transcendental. So you should know the many facets. And when you see the composite of Prabhupada's personality through all of his purports, then you'll have firm conviction. Siddhanta bolya chitta nakara alash iha hoite Krishna lagi sudrid manash. For the mind to be sudrid, to be fixed in serving an acharya and saying, I'm under this acharya, you have to know what he thinks. You have to know how he feels. And if I cherry pick from the database and say, this is all Prabhupada has to say about a particular subject, then I'm going to distort the vision of who actually Prabhupada is. I won't have a full realization, and therefore I won't have the proper conviction to follow. Let's just take a question or two at this point, because I've been giving monologue for quite a while now.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So we have a general question that has been asked by quite a few devotees, which is around the concept of reading and rereading, and how do we recollect and precisely remember what we've read, given the vast amount of information and knowledge that is present in Srila Prabhupada's books.
Prabhupada writes in a purport that although the channel to the ear is very small, inside is as vast as the sky. So he said, don't worry about putting too much in there. It's all there, actually. And as you continue to put it in, Krishna will reveal the knowledge. This is a devotional process. So again, it's not academic or intellectual. There's a way in which, if we hear devotionally, Krishna will manifest that knowledge within our heart, if we hear with faith. Yasya Devi para bhaktir yata Devi tatagaro tasyaite katita hyarta prakashanti mahatmanaha. To those who have firm faith in Krishna and the spiritual master, the import of transcendental knowledge is revealed. The import. Oftentimes, there are speakers who do Bhagavat Sapta. They can recite verses like the wind. It's in their blood. They grew up in the family where they have it. They know Sanskrit. They know Bengali. They know everything. They know every commentary. But Gopi Paranadana Prabhu told me that he would see at Govardhan, they do these Bhagavat Saptas during the Kartik time, and then behind the stage, the speaker is smoking a bidi. There's no realization of it. So the realization that the South Indian Brahmin got, that Krishna is so kind to his devotees, that he was crying, this devotee was crying thinking of it, even though he is illiterate. So we're not specifically trying to just extract the knowledge so that we can recite it verbatim or show that we know everything. In fact, one of my godbrothers, when he was leaving the world, he called together a few friends and he said, read Prabhupada's books for his association, don't read it for the information. So if you approach it like that, very devotionally, you'll find that Krishna will manifest that knowledge in your heart. And the perfection of all that knowledge is really that we get a taste for hearing. And Krishna begins to manifest in our heart. There is no difference between the sound vibration and Krishna himself. Iti murtyabhidanena mantra murtimamurtikam yajite yagya purusham sasam yag darshana puman. When you hear Bhagavatam, when you hear the holy name, it's a direct manifestation of Krishna in your heart. It's not information. It's actually Krishna. And Krishna in the heart, Shrinvatam swa kata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridyantaksto hibhadrani vidhunoti suritsatam. He assists such a person personally to remove the obstacles in the form of anarthas and material desires. So remember, it's a transcendental process, but as far as memorizing goes, it's also a process of devotional service, hearing and memorizing. So there are many different ways to do that, but the king of all advice about memorization is contact time. The more times you hear something, and the more times that you hear it in different settings, the more you'll start to remember it naturally. And it's a gift that comes from Krishna. And some people have prodigious memories. Don't get all upset about it. Like, how come that person knows everything? I don't know anything. It's about devotion. It's not about quantity of shlokas or how much you can remember. Because as I mentioned before, there are people who have prodigious memories, but then they're not actually sincere. They're speaking they're doing it as a living. I don't know any devotees who are like that, but I do know that devotees get an anxiety about, like, how come I can't memorize so many shlokas? Everybody's different, and everyone expresses their devotion in a different way. Let's see what else there is, Priya Kishori.
We have a few devotees here who would like to ask a question. So we have Srivas Pandit Prabhu here first.
Oh, we're bringing in the heavy hitters now.
Hare Krishna, Vaisesika Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. First of all, I would like to thank you for doing this seminar. And because you have a million other things going on, yet for the benefit of the devotees, that you have taken time to kindly not only do this seminar, but prepare for it. Such an excellent presentation. So I would like to thank you. And I just wanted to point out that ever since Srila Prabhupada gave you that instruction, you have taken it to heart to such an extent that you have repeatedly read for many, many decades his books. And then you are one of the few unique personalities. You not only saw how, what we take for granted today was an evolution in progress, and at times painful to be where we are. And then you are able to also witness the explosion of books written by other devotees. And so you are a unique personality, not only having assimilated Srila Prabhupada's books, encouraged others, but also witnessed through the whole thing for 47 years now. So I'm deeply grateful for taking your time and giving us this wisdom. Coming from you, it means a lot. So I would like to really, really, really thank you. Hare Krishna.
Oh, Srivas Pandit Prabhu, Hare Krishna. I don't know if you know this, the others here, but I've been meeting with Srivas Pandit Prabhu regularly for the last 20 years to read Bhagavatam. He comes to my house, we sneak time, now it's all on Zoom, but we get together almost every day to read Bhagavatam. And he's been a constant, enthusiastic associate for so many years. So, as they say in Japan, kochira koso, right back at you. Hare Krishna. And see all those books behind him? He's read all those. In process. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Would you like to take
Kishori, anything else?
Yes, Prabhu. We have a few more devotees. Would you like to take a few more?
Let's take one more and I'll keep going through the PowerPoint.
Yes. We have Divya Rupa Nitai Prabhu who would like to ask a question.
Divya Rupa Nitai. What a great name.
Please,
It was good for us. Hare Krishna Prabhu, where are you?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I am from South India, Coimbatore.
Oh, Coimbatore, our favorite place.
So I'm really so much thanks for you you are really inspiring to read Srila Prabhupada books and the points that you have been telling. Like it's not finishing once, you should do again and again. So my question is, in the initial stages, devotees were asking me to read Srila Prabhupada books. I'm not much in vocabulary or reading English or something like that. But later on, after hearing a lot, giving some focus, something, as you said, it actually solves our problem that fits in our mind. I could able to feel it. But when time progresses, distraction or something like that happened, the priority for reading Srila Prabhupada books and giving importance to it got away, and I'm not able to really focus. So can you please tell some ways and means really to do it?
Yes, Prabhu. One thing that helps me is I write down my priorities and I revisit them every day. So I have a list. I don't want to walk away from the screen right now, but I could produce it for you in the next 30 seconds. I have a list of all my priorities in my day, in my life. And I revisit that regularly. The mind naturally gets absorbed in other kinds of things. And so this is what this seminar is about. So refocus, come back to the reading and make it a priority in your life by stating it. This is what my priority is. Also, it's good to stay connected with others who have a similar priority because they'll remind you how important it is. I have friends, my close friend, Keshav Bharti Maharaj, very dear friend since 1973. He has this program on Facebook called The Daily Reading of Srila Prabhupada's Books. And he and I have met in Govardhan for the last 20 years during Kartik. And we take 5-6 hours a day with a group of devotees just to read Srila Prabhupada's books and hear the purports again and again. The whole Krishna book, whole cantos of Bhagavatam. And because we're together like 2 months, 3 months before we go to Govardhan, we're talking about what are we going to read this time? And what are you reading now? And so forth. If you stay in touch with those who are also in that flow of hearing, then you'll also be inspired in that way. And I'm going to say a few more things about how to get organized and how to stay on track in just a second. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Good to see you from Coimbatore.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Priya, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen.
Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, so Srila Prabhupada is a person. Devotional service is personal. Krishna is a person. And we should try to please him by reading his books. Now, the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita also points out, don't become a bookworm. And this goes to this point. A dilettante is a person who cultivates an area of interest such as the arts without real commitment or knowledge. So this goes to this point about not just collecting information, but being devoted to the process itself as the connection we're getting to Krishna through hearing. And I mentioned this point also, try to emulate his enthusiasm for writing in our reading. And keep the transcendental vibration going. All the time, see if you can keep that vibration going in the different phases of the day. And one of the ways you can do that is whatever you've read, bring it up to other people so that in the gaps, you just read something, instead of saying something about the weather, the news, tell a story. Oh, I just read this. And it doesn't matter if you remember it completely or not. You don't have to be an eloquent speaker. You can just try to remember one or two little things and then say it. And then you'll find that it expands. It becomes more meaningful to you. Krishna will help you. And others will jump in also and say, oh, I know that verse. I know that story. And they'll begin to flesh it out. Starve your distractions. Feed your focus. So I have a saying that focus is nectar and distraction is torture. So if you think about the word distraction, attraction means Krishna. He's the attractor. And when we're distracted, we're actually being tortured. So we have to practice feeding our focus just like anything else. If you want to learn how to balance, you got to do balancing exercises. If you want to learn how to hit a target with an arrow, you have to keep shooting it again and again until you get it. It's miraculous. Madanga. Practice over and over again, and suddenly your fingers are doing it. So similarly with focus, you have to practice. Here's something you can try. Go on a news fast. I talked to a devotee yesterday, and he said at the end of our conversation, he said, I've been fasting since Janmashtami. I said, what? You've been fasting since Janmashtami? He said, yes, I'm on a news fast. And you could see the determination. He's doing tapasya. It's actually a tapasya to go on a news fast. Try it for 15 days, 30 days. And instead of hearing the news, you're going to have to fill it in with something. So read Prabhupada's books. Join Chad. Chad is there at readchad.com. And Chad means chant one chapter of Bhagavad Gita every day. I do mine in the morning, right after I get up. I do my one chapter so I don't forget it in the day. And if you keep reading Bhagavad Gita, at least one chapter, Prabhupada recommended this many times, then you'll find that you'll develop a relationship with Krishna through the Bhagavad Gita because he's actually speaking to you. So also download the Be a Sage app. So take a second, we'll do that in a minute, but there's an app, Be a Sage. And let me tell you about what this is, the Be a Sage app. So there was a time when I started feeling overwhelmed by the sheer volume of Prabhupada's books. And then I had the association of a dear godbrother, Hanumat Prekshak Swami, and I could see that he was in this flow of going through Prabhupada's books systematically every single day and reading huge quantities of his books and comprehensively understanding what was going on in the Bhagavatam. Not just a bit here and a bit there, but he was putting it all together. And then I was thinking, I want to be in that flow of reading all the Prabhupada's books regularly. So what should I do? And I heard a lecture, it was just a short talk actually by a speaker called Brian Tracy. And he said, if you ever find yourself overwhelmed by a big task isn't really the right word, by a big goal, something that seems so large that I'm thinking, I could never do that. Has that ever happened to any of you? That you looked at something and say, oh, I could never do this. It's happened? Okay, good. I mean, it's natural. So I was feeling like that when I was looking at all of Prabhupada's books. How is it possible with the schedule I have now and everything? And then Brian Tracy said, if you ever look at something that you want to do, but it looks like it's too big to do, just break it into small parts. And I thought, why didn't I think of that? So I came home and I started thinking about it, and I realized that Prabhupada's books have a finite number of pages. So why not just count the pages? So I called Srivas Pandit. I said, Prabhu, could you do me a favor? I have this idea. I want to make a chart to measure reading of Prabhupada's books. Could you help me count all the pages? So Srivas immediately got into it. He started coming back with all these numbers. He said, the Bhagavatam has this many pages. And somebody could actually tell me right now if they look at the app. The Bhagavad Gita, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a finite number of pages. So together we made a little card that had a list of all of Prabhupada's books on one side, and then on the other side it listed time periods like 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and so forth. And then in the middle, you'd put the number of how many pages you had to read each day in order to hit that target. And when I saw that I only had to read 41 pages of the Bhagavatam a day, I did a little dance. I could reproduce that for you right now, but I was actually dancing because I had an epiphany. I said, I could do this because I know what to do now. Before it was amorphous. It was just a huge goal, and I thought, like, I couldn't do this. I don't have the right lifestyle. But then I realized I can read the Bhagavatam every year if I just read 41 pages. So then it became a challenge for my mind, in my whole life. And then I started retooling the way my schedule worked so that I could do my 41 pages a day. And lo and behold, the first year I hit my target. A little bit under a year, minus 2 weeks, I was able to do that. And I was so inspired by being able to go through all of the Bhagavatam from beginning to end within a 1 year period. So that's how we came up with this idea of be a sage page by page. And I'd like to reveal to you a revelation that I've had, especially when we're reading the books at Govardhan, when we're really reading a large quantity. At first, I'd like to say that it's not necessary simply to read large quantities. If you read a smaller quantity and take your time and go into it deeply, that's equally as good, and that way you can just measure by time instead of pages. Because everyone has their own style of reading. It's not one or the other is perfect, or they're both perfect. So after I started distributing that card, people would call me and say, oh, this helped me so much. I've just completed the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'd never done it before, but I measured it. And then with the help of some geniuses at ISV, we put together an app. And that app is on the App Store, and it's for free. It goes for iOS or for, what's that other thing called?
Android.
Android. Yeah, you can download it for either one of those. And then you can measure how many pages you do a day. And if you do that, you'll be in the flow. Okay. Pre-Kishori, let's see if there's any thoughts about that or questions.
Yes, Prabhu. So we have one question from Srivatsa here, and he says, sometimes in order to stay regulated, I set a daily minimum number of verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. However, sometimes I like to write notes or sit down and reflect about what I read by drawing parallels between the verses I read and something similar in my life. This, however, takes up time, and it takes away from the set number of verses that I had initially planned. How do we place a minimum and also improve our retention of what we're reading?
Well, that's a good sign, Srivatsa Prabhu, and I've been noticing that you're memorizing all kinds of verses and knowing certain parts of the Shastra. It's a good problem to have. That's the kind of problem you want to have in life. How do I divide my time between all the nectar that I have? That's not bad. That's good. There's no one completely right way to do it. The fact is, the mind needs variety. And go with your taste. If you have a particular taste for doing it in one way, then absorb yourself. Main thing is keep the transcendental vibration going and stay absorbed. Sometimes you'll feel like reading straight through. Sometimes you'll spend the whole day on one purport. Some days you'll want to write something. Do that, but stay absorbed. That's the main point. Prikishori, what else?
I think we'll move on to the devotees who've been waiting to ask their question. Here we have, we've had Ram Vijay Prabhu. I'm unmuting you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for
Hare Krishna, Ram Vijay Prabhu.
Thank you for taking your time this morning. Such a wonderful topic to continue to inspire us for reading. I have a question in terms of reading and balancing our japa. Sometimes, devotees try to chant extra rounds and get into a mode of chanting a set number of rounds on a daily basis. Let's just say more than 16. So how do we balance between allocating time for japa versus reading when somebody's in a mode of chanting a prescribed number of rounds? Some practical tips if you can share.
Well, how do you do it?
That's been a challenge. That's why I'm asking the question, that when you chant extra rounds and you get to a certain number of rounds, then, the reading time, what was very inspiring for me in this session was set a, 1 to 2 hours daily, right? We take out time to read, but that's not regulated as much to say it's 2 hours daily, right? So now increasing our time to read and taking out time from other activities, plus having a set number of rounds is going to be something that we have to work on. But I'm just wondering if there are any practical tips you can share.
Well, first I'll give you a philosophical overview about a frog who, in experiments, if you put a frog into a very hot pot of water, he'll jump right out because that's hot, I'm getting out. But if you put him in cool or lukewarm and then gradually raise the heat, then he'll cook in there. Sorry, frog. And it's only theoretical point. I do love frogs. But in a similar way, as we turn up the heat on our sadhana and our practice, gradually over the different parts of our life, means at every area in life we have different responsibilities. Sometimes, I've seen friends who had very intense jobs they had to work as grihastas, and they didn't have as much time to read at those times. So they budgeted in what they could at that time. And partly that was a benefit because once they got out of that, they were so eager, having been held back for a few years, that they really took advantage of the time when they had it. So it's not that everything will jam right into a perfect formula that I'll read 1 hour a day and that'll go on the rest of my life. So sometimes, you'll have an opportunity to read a couple hours or 3 or something like that. And other times you might be asked to help do the Rath Yatra festival and you'll be up all night. And then you can do what you can the next day. So you really have to just have the pole star to look at, that this is what my priority is, and work towards it, and try to find ways to be creative and inventive to keep the transcendental vibration going around that point. And as you do so, you'll find ways. And as you have more taste, as we develop more taste, we tend to be more inventive because we have to have it. I always figure out a way to take prasadam, except on fast days. And how do I do that? It's because I have a taste for it. It's like, are you going to eat? Of course I'm going to eat. And so I say, what about reading? It's like, well, maybe not today. Well, why not? I'm not hungry. If you're hungry for something, you'll do it. So it's not time, it's taste. And when we take the time, then we'll develop the taste. So do what you can with what you have now, and then you'll get more. And that's always the answer that Krishna gives. He says, Jata Shraddha Matkatasu Nirvina Sarva Karmasu Veda Dukatmakam Kamam Prityagi Pranishvara Tato Bhajeta. He goes on to say that there's a way in which, even if you can't do everything you want to do right now, don't give up, keep going, you'll get there. Hare Krishna. Jai. Priya, I'm going to show a couple more slides, and then I'll take a couple more questions. Okay, download this app. I recommend it. Once you set your little picker wheel on how many pages that you intend to do each day for a particular book, then there's a reminder that will come to you every day, and you can also mark your progress. And that will help. Here's another bit of advice, and you get sticky Post-its. These you can get at an office store. I bought them in India, and I've also purchased them in America. And they look like this. They're little plastic flags. And these you can stick in a book like this. You notice how I put my flag in? I could take it back out again. Hundreds of times this sticks. It's a miracle. And then what I do is I pick the number of pages that I'm going to read for the day, and I'll write on this sticker, if let's just say I'm going to read 5 pages a day, let the record show that this says 5 on it. Now what do? I move it 5 pages forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I put up my do not disturb sign. And I sit down in my sacred place and I finish until I hit my flag. So have any of you ever played a sport before? Anybody? Divya Rupa, come on. What did you play down in Coimbatore down there back in the old days? Cricket? Soccer? Okay, Radhakripa is cricket.
Yes,
What if
Prabhu.
you did? I don't know anything about cricket, but I know you got to throw something at something, right?
Yeah.
And there's a perimeter that you have to hit the ball out of. So what if the markings weren't there?
Then
What
you
about basketball? Yeah?
then you cannot measure that, whether you're
You cannot
on
measure?
top.
How are you going to play cricket? So how are you going to read? How are you going to do your reading if you don't know what you're shooting for? You just sit down. Of course, spontaneously, you could just read this and that, and that's also good. But if you want to make progress, then mark your page and say, this is what I'm going to finish for now. And then keep moving like that. And I wanted to make this point earlier, but I'm going to make it again. Take a look at, or I'll make it now. Take a look at this. Is everyone watching?
Yeah.
Can you see that page that's sticking up in the middle? How thin is that?
Super thin.
It's very thin.
It's immeasurably thin. I mean, I'm sure that some scientists could measure it, but it's so thin. I have no instrument in my room or in my house anywhere that I could measure the thinness of that page. And oftentimes I think, how could I actually ever read a book? Because the pages are too thin. And you know what's a miracle? If you just keep moving them one after another, you somehow or other you get there. And it's a metaphor for our lives. You will simultaneously be inspiring yourself in your devotional service because you'll think, what can I do? I'm so fallen. I can't do anything. My devotional service is insignificant. Well, so's the size of a page. But if you just keep turning them, somebody's going to come up to you and go, wow, you just finished that book? And you go, I guess I did. How did you do it? Page by page. Be a sage. You just keep trying. And you'll be successful. Okay. Here's a few more tips. Now, it doesn't get any more practical than that, does it? Use Post-its flags. Is that practical? Okay, there should be, if anybody wants to invest in Post-it stock, now's a good time because there'll be a big spike. Create a sacred reading space. Find a place where you feel comfortable, where you can sit and read, whether it's in front of your deities or you have a favorite corner, but make it clean and nice and comfortable and sit in a respectful way. Don't read in the mode of ignorance on your back. slouching, but kind of sit up and show respect for the Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita, whatever you're reading. Respectfully read. Offer prayers before and after reading. These are deities. In Hungary, there's a custom that the devotees have when they have Bhagavatam class. They have a ceremony where they bring the Bhagavatam off the altar and they all stand up and then they put it down before the speaker and they say the prayers before reading, Narayanam Namaskritya. And so similarly, you can do that when you read, and it will give you more impetus, and you'll remember it's Krishna. Next is to collect mentors to help you understand difficult sections. I've got a bunch of mentors, people who have been reading the Bhagavatam for years, have heard from Prabhupada directly through his books and have asked questions, some who are really clear on Sanskrit and commentaries. So if I ever have a question, I call them or I write them and I get the answer right away. So take 1 minute and write and download Be a Sage. This is the exercise right now. Can you do that? I see Radhakripa Prabhu's doing it, but I think he already has it.
The links are in the chat. So if you go in and look, the links are in for both Google, for the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store.
Thank you. Okay. And our last section is Grow by Giving. This is the Anandam Buddhivardhanam. The more that you distribute this knowledge to others, the more it will increase in your heart and mind. I remember when we first started our Sankirtan party here at ISV, and some of the devotees were brand new, and they had gone out to distribute books, and they came back and they said, we distributed a bunch of these books today, and now we really are eager to know what's in them. And then they started a reading group. And it's very interesting. Of course, in the Bhagavatam, it says, Shru Shru Shro Shradhanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahat Seveya Viprapunya Tirtha Nishevanat. When you do service for a great soul, then you'll develop an affinity for hearing and chanting. And there's something very magical about distributing Prabhupada's books and the desire that will grow in your heart for reading them. So this is the principle. Teach. I met a godbrother in Vrindavan about 25 years ago. He passed away about 10 years ago, but when I saw him speak in Vrindavan, I was amazed. And I made an appointment with him to go on a parikram. We could walk and talk together. And I said, how did you get like this? You've become so learned. Your speaking on the Bhagavatam is so profound. What did you do? And he said, I focused on teaching it as much as possible, teaching to others. He said, because teaching is the best preparation. The more you try to impart the knowledge to others, the more you have to organize your thoughts and the more impetus you have to read yourself. So this distribution of knowledge is high sadhana. Because actually what you're doing is igniting the fire of knowledge within the heart of the soul. And every body that's walking around the planet is actually a walking temple. And the highest method of worshiping the Lord is to worship Him in the heart. Tapyante lokatapena sarva prayasojana. Parama aradananta di purusha syakilatmana. The best way to worship the Lord, the parama aradanam, is to take a little trouble upon oneself to give it to other people, to give this knowledge, to save them from the fire of the material world. Rice and dal, they're both good foods, but when you put them together, you get synergy. It's a superfood. Rice and dal, 42% more nutrition. When you hear, it's good. When you read, it's good. When you distribute, it's good. But when you do the two together, it's a lifestyle that is super sadhana. Our very word, sampradaya, means gift giving. It means to bequeath the gift of knowledge to others. Start your own monthly Sankirtan festival so you're organized at least once a month to go out and give to other people the gift of knowledge. Nowadays you can stay in, you have to, most places, and do calling parties, but one way or another, organize yourself. Start your own Bhagavad Gita class. One of my favorite stories in the Shastra is that of Advaita Acharya. He had his own Bhagavad Gita class going on at his house. That's how the Sankirtan movement really started. The devotees used to gather there in the little courtyard and you'd hear him give open class. And from there, the devotees organized their Sangha. So if you want to start or restart the Hare Krishna movement at any time, just hold open Bhagavad Gita class. That's all you have to do. The vibration is so powerful, and you don't have to be a big pundit. You just have to be sincere, read the books, and facilitate discussing them amongst the devotees. Get in a group, and also join Bhadra Purnima. It's coming up on September 2nd, and it's the day upon which, when you give away a set of Bhagavatams to somebody else, you get the gift of going back home, back to Godhead. This year's goal is to distribute 10,000 sets of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So take 1 second and write down 3 people in your life you'd like to give a book to or a Bhagavatam to. And see what you can do in the next 30 days. Can you write that down? Manisha needs a pen. Just kidding. Okay. Good. This is the main instrument of creation, the pen. If you can have a pen and a piece of paper, you can write down your ideas, they'll start to manifest in your life. Write down your goals, you'll be able to hit them. So now let's see if there's some more questions. We're coming to the end here, but we've barely scratched the surface, and we'd like to hear from you if there's any categories of information or inspiration that you think need to be opened? Or is there an obstacle that you're feeling? That it's a burning question. I need to remove this obstacle before I can read Srila Prabhupada's books. Now's a good time. What else do we have, Priya?
So we had a really nice reflection from Shankarananda Prabhu that reaffirms a lot of what you have been saying, Prabhu. He says, initially in beginning of our Krishna consciousness, almost everyone had a question, why count on japa beads? We're chanting the names of God, why count? But what you mentioned, but that tendency remains even after many years of practice of Krishna consciousness. When you mentioned about the 24 hours in a day, I was thinking of accountability in our sadhana benefits us as devotees around us. In our daily japa call, we have a system of filling our sadhana cards and reading and hearing on a daily basis. For everything, there are points allotted. Yesterday, there was a devotee from our group, and he was mentioning that he had been practicing Krishna consciousness for 16 years, but since March, when he and many devotees in our reading group are filling their sadhana charts about reading, he felt inspired that he was given a boost in his Krishna consciousness that he never felt in those 16 years. So he's reaffirming the fact of accountability and returning to counting and reading Srila Prabhupada's books on a daily basis.
Thank you, Shankaranand Prabhu. That was comprehensive and really important.
There's also a general question about the different methods of reading and hearing, such as there's Veda-based and many different platforms from which we read. Also, there are recordings of Srila Prabhupada's books, including the translations and purports done by various other devotees. Can those be considered as a part of our reading? So this has been one of the general questions.
Absolutely. The Goswamis wrote on palm leaves, and nowadays we have digital. We also have paper books. There are recordings. There is something that I find aesthetically pleasing about a book, And I've mentioned this before in other seminars, that books aren't going away in human society just because there's digital, because at least I find for myself, although I do read on digital platforms as well, when I'm traveling, especially because I can't carry too many books with me. But I find that a book has the covers on the side. And I know when I'm getting to the end of the book, there's also a way conceptually, by looking at the pages, I'm able to remember where things were. Whereas on the digital media, I'm just scrolling down, and where did it go? There's no context for it. There's much more context in a book. These are just my own personal feelings. But I do read on both, and any way that you can stay in contact with the information. For instance, in this room I stay in here, I have a speaker system, and I have one device that's dedicated to Prabhupada's books with the translations and purports. So when I'm not able to hold a book in my hand, I'm doing something else, oftentimes I'll just turn that on, so I'm listening to it. So this is part of the principle of keeping the vibration going. So if you can't be holding a book in your hand, or you can't travel with one, read it digitally, or whatever you prefer. It's really a matter of taste. Whatever you like the best is what's good for you. What else, Priya?
There's a question from Ishan Gaur Prabhu as to whether we should be reading Srila Prabhupada's books sequentially or together, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, etc., or we can read them all together.
Well, you might notice that Prabhupada wrote the Krishna book. He stopped translating at the 4th canto, and it was after he had some severe health problems, and he gave the summary study of the 10th canto because he wasn't sure how long he was going to be with us in the world. And he also gave the TLC before anything else. So Prabhupada didn't write him in exact sequence, and what's more, because of his purports, they're such a guiding principle, and that we can find in them context for everything. For instance, it's okay to read the 10th canto in the form of the Krishna book before you do other things, because everything is complete in that. It is recommended, however, that we have foundation in the Bhagavad Gita. And also it's recommended in various places that you take time to go through the first 9 cantos before you go to the 10th canto, and then go into Chaitanya Charitamrita. However, it's not such a strict principle that if you start to read something else out of sequence that you've committed some kind of aparadha. Prabhupada used to say that just like a sugar doll, anywhere you taste it, it's sweet. That means like a lollipop. And similarly in my books, he said, anywhere you read, it is sweet. It's nice to go through systematically as much as possible, but don't fret if you happen to sit down in a class at Chaitanya Charitamrita and it turns out to be something that you haven't worked up to systematically. Priya, it looks like an earthquake is going on there. All right, what else do we have?
We also have a few live questions here, so we will unmute the devotees so they can ask. We have Yashoda Dulal Prabhu and Shri Radhika Mataji.
Oh, Yashoda Dulal Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Oh, you're on mute.
Please
but I have
unmute.
a question for you. Is that an actual bookshelf, or are you behind a virtual bookshelf?
No, it is an actual bookshelf.
That's amazing.
Inspired by you. Fantastic to see you.
I got to step up my game here. I just have a skinny little bookshelf. Yours is like the ocean. Prabhu, it's good to see you. Please go ahead.
Great to see you. Thank you. I had a reflection. I mean, so many things in this class struck me, and I've been writing notes furiously, but it's not time we lack, it's taste. And we only get a taste by taking time. I love that point, and I'm going to inscribe it and keep it in front of me.
Tattoo. You get a tattoo on your arm.
On my head, maybe.
Neck.
Yeah. So I had a question. I've heard it from you in classes before, how you talk about do your devotional practices on priority, and then the rest of your life, your material duties and everything else will fall into place. So in the context of this class, I thought that was relevant to ask if you could give us some insight into that, please. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I always find that it's helpful to overcome the mind by covering my foundation or fundamentals first. And I have this mantra that I keep going in my mind, and sometimes I write it as you always win with the fundamentals. You'll find that in any discipline like sports, like studying for accounting, for music. You definitely have to do the teraketa, 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 teraketa. What are you doing now? Teraketa, teraketa. What are you doing an hour from now? Teraketa, teraketa. So until you have that down, you really can't move forward. So I always feel that if I cover my fundamentals as early as I can in the day, then it gives me a major advantage because I have something to build on from there. So Prabhupada told me personally, I think he told all of us, but I heard it right from his mouth and it impressed me. And then I saw it in his teachings everywhere. And there were eras I went through, like the Radha Damodar era. I wasn't on that party at first till 1975 when we merged in New York City, by the way, 340 West 55th. But I saw that the brahmacharis there didn't really get much time to read. I was on a different party, and we did have time to read. We made time to read because we saw it was integral to our distribution. And Prabhupada had told us that. And I just kept that ethos throughout my life, that I have to do this first. And so I just arrange a way to do that, to get it done. And then I know that I've done my reading, I've done my 16 rounds, and then I can be effective. And I really don't feel effective unless I've done that. So that's a process that I recommend, is cover your fundamentals. And it should include reading a certain number, or it's taken a certain amount of time for reading every day. Because otherwise, if you put it off, you won't get to it later in the day, oftentimes. Or unless you really have it lined up, you take the book with you, you read it on the train, or whatever you're going to do, just make sure you get it done. And it really changes everything. Because we have to take a stand somewhere, other the mind will just keep taking us through its own course, and life after life, that's what it's been doing. Hare Krishna, Yashoda, great to see you. Hare Hare.
We have a question from Govindacharan Prabhu and Rasika Mataji.
Oh, fantastic.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dandavat.
Hare Krishna, great to see you.
Thank you so much for doing this webinar. I mean, the reason I attended this webinar is I never take the time to read anything. I hear, but I don't sit and read. So I wanted to take this as an inspiration to start that habit. I have a question. We have chanting. So we keep hearing that chanting is also a service. So we have to prioritize and consider that as the most important service to your spiritual master. So we know to prioritize chanting. So how to prioritize reading over services? Because I always find that services, maybe that's in my mind, or maybe I give an extra priority to them. I wanted to understand, with services, how do I prioritize reading? Telling myself it is okay to read,
Yeah, do prioritize reading the same way you prioritize taking prasadam. So if you, I don't know, whatever you do, breakfast, lunch, dinner, or just lunch, whatever, depends on what kind of diet you're on, then start a diet. Consider it a diet. You have to have this in your diet in order to be healthy. And so you add it in just like your prasadam. And you're hearing now how important it is. And then if you start on the thin edge of the wedge, so any endeavor that seems like, well, how am I going to put this into my life? You may be the busiest person I know in my life on the planet. So how would you start it? With the thin edge of the wedge. You fit that into small crack somewhere. That's what wedges do. And then you just keep popping it a little bit every single day. And pretty soon it opens up a big space for you. So I've seen people do it. I've seen friends do it, and they say, I really want to read, I really want to read, I really want to read. How can I do it? I say, start with what you can handle right now. Because anandam buddhivardhanam, it always grows. The ocean grows. And it's, you know what? Chanting 16 rounds is an empowered activity. I see people all the time, they come to Krishna Consciousness Movement and they say, well, I can only chant one round. I see, keep associating, keep trying. And then they come back, I'm doing 4. And then, they'll meet somebody and then they'll go, I'm chanting 16. He told me to chant 16. Now I'm doing it. And how did it happen? And how does somebody throughout their life maintain 16 rounds that you've been doing for many years? It's empowered. So reading is an empowered activity. We take all our inspiration from Krishna, but we have to do our part. So try and start with something you can handle, even 1 page. It doesn't matter how much. Quantity is not so important. Birds fly in the sky as high as they're able, but since the sky is unlimited, what difference does it make? Everyone's doing what they can, right, with what they have. So just start with something, and if anybody can prioritize things and get them done, it's you. So just add it to your list, write it down, put it underneath, or on top, wherever you want to put it, and just say, this is what I do now. And you'll just do it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Good to see you.
We have another question from the chats that has been occurring, which is, there are some sections of Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita that are more interesting than others, and that are more applicable to our lives than others. How do we sustain our interest throughout those sections?
Well, first of all, don't go into reading for your own sense gratification. Go into it to please Krishna. When you go on a parikrama, like when we do Govardhan parikrama, we're doing it to please Giriraj. And when we walk around Govardhan, some places are very pleasing for the feet because it's just nice, soft dirt or sand, no pebbles, no stickers, nothing. And so you just go, oh, life is good. I feel so happy. My feet feel so good. I'm breathing the air. And then you come to gravel because somebody's doing road work and they just didn't think about the parikram path and they put gravel across. And then you say like, okay, I just got to keep going. You can't turn around and say like, I'm not going to walk on this area. You got to go. So one thing is, you don't go to Giriraj and walk around so you can be happy. You go to serve him. So reading Prabhupada's books is like parikrama. You read it to please Krishna. And whatever it is, Sanatana Goswami says every single syllable of the Bhagavatam is pouring down oceans of nectar. He says that in his glorification of the Bhagavatam. Maybe I don't taste it yet because I'm looking for some special nectar for me, but it's all there. And also, you'll notice that when you go through those sections, like there's some long purports in the Adi Leela, and you just listen attentively and don't try to figure it all out, just listen. You'll notice that Krishna will manifest the meaning to you in due course of time. It's a transcendental process. It's not academic. It has nothing to do with regurgitating for the SAT so that you can get a high score. Nothing wrong with that, all of you, if you did get high scores. We appreciate, but Bhagavatam's different. It's service. So the service is you listen and appreciate. I listened to some parts of the Tattva Sandarbha at the end, Sarva Samvadani. I couldn't understand anything. But I told Samya Pras, I said, let's just read it and keep... I want to hear it as a service to Jiva Goswami. He wrote it, I'm going to listen. And the more I listened to it, the more I started, appreciating the person who wrote it. And I felt this great devotion for Jiva Goswami. And so we should read in that mood so that we're doing it out of service. And to get to know the person, to have their association, and let Krishna manifest the knowledge from within your heart. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yashivayaragyam Jnanam Cha Yarahaitukam. When you serve Krishna, the concomitant benefits are that you get knowledge and detachment from the world. We can't do that ourselves, but Krishna can give it to us. Well, it seems like we're should be winding down at some point, but Pre-Kishore, if there's a few more we can give.
Yeah, there are quite a few devotees who've been waiting to ask their question live, so maybe we can take a few more. Prabhu?
Okay, sure. Let me check in with the producers of this show.
Sure.
Shamahini, what should I do?
Maybe we can take 2 more questions, Prabhu.
Okay, 2 more questions. Here we go. I'll stretch them out for about a half an hour with the answer. Just kidding. For those of you who need to take lunch or breakfast. Go ahead.
We have Vamsidhari Gopal Das, who has his hand raised. Prabhu, are you there? I've unmuted you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you so much. Thank you so much for inspiring talk, Prabhu, because I could relate with all of what you have said in my personal example, because I have been procrastinating reading for 2 years for all reasons which you mentioned in this, all that I am not yet there. I am able to understand. Maybe I need to become, more focused in chanting before I start reading, and all those kind of excuses. But inspiring one of your earlier talks, I started reading since 1st of January this year. As you mentioned, that setting a goal of 30 pages per day. And so that way I am able to maintain for last 8 months. I am on 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam now.
Wow.
So thank you very much, Prabhu. So only thing, couple of things I want to clarify, which can help me further. The one which I like that you said that filling the gaps with reading. So during the day, I find that little bit 10 minutes, 15 minutes time here and there, which I kind of waste right now. Either I browse Facebook or I read some random thing, or I just waste that time. So what books you can recommend to fill that time? Because I understand that Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita we read in a secret space with a focused time and with a scheduled time. But in these filler times, what other books, maybe not from Srila Prabhupada, but from some other devotees, I can read so that I don't waste my time into some nonsense thing?
Well, oftentimes what I'll do is I'll print out passages. In fact, I have a large Ziploc bag right now with a lot of passages that I'm studying that I come across when I'm reading, and I'll say, I really want to go more deeply within this purport. So I'll print it out, I'll staple it together, and then I keep it with me in my bag. And that's a good thing to do. You get in the car, you pull that out and say to the driver, this is an old trick. You say, can I read you a verse? And then you start reading and you just don't stop. And then by the time you get to where you're going, you got to read it again. And as far as what to read, it's really according to your taste. I recommend first assimilate Prabhupada's books as much as possible, because everything's there so perfectly. And when you become charmed by the sheer power of his realization mixed with the poetry of his words, then more and more you become convinced of how he's empowered by Krishna to bring this message to the world. And this is of fundamental importance to the Krishna Consciousness Movement, is our dedication to this primary sound vibration that sustains us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your question, Prabhu.
Yeah, so Prabhu, can I ask one more question?
Okay.
So Prabhu, similarly, like reading, I understand. So how I can prioritize hearing, because I'm pretty neophyte. So there are so many classes going on everywhere, and there is so much to hear, and I feel inspired to hear as much as possible, and I like it all. But then like to prioritize and to balance the time and all that kind of thing. So how do we balance, like to hear, like a starting point, like we said, that Bhagavad Gita is foundation. So in hearing, so should we try to focus based on topic so that we get step by step rather than being all over and being all over the place?
It's really according to your taste.
Okay.
If you have a taste for hearing in a certain way, then do it. Because everyone, at lunch, you may sit down and you may prefer chapatis. Somebody else may like rice. If they're from Bengal, maybe they'll like rice. If you're from northern India, you like chapati. But it's all prasadam. So same thing with reading and hearing. If you're attached to hearing a certain thing, then hear that and become attached to it. There are certain basics that it's good to know. You should read all of Prabhupada's books, read the whole Bhagavad Gita 5, 10, 20 times or more, and get to know Prabhupada's voice, and get to know the Bhagavad Gita as it is before going into a million other Bhagavad Gitas, although it's nice to have them as reference, but specialize in Prabhupada's books. That's what I recommend. My recommendation. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good to see you. Okay, we're down to our last question, Priya. See if you can pick a winner.
Yes, we have Champa Kalata Mataji.
Great.
Yes. Please go ahead, Mataji.
All glories to you, all glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, I have a question. Maharaj, I have a question. I have two kids. One is 7-year-old and one is 3-year-old. And I'm homeschooling the older one. And I do Srimad Bhagavatam with her past 1 year. We started first canto and we're about to finish the first canto. And since they were little, they've been going out for book distribution. Even my little one who was 1 year old, and he would love to go out for book distribution. My question is, Maharaj, I try myself best to discipline myself and read Srimad Bhagavatam every day, but there are days when I'm stressed out so much to a point where I cannot read Srimad Bhagavatam, and a lot of times the link breaks. And at times, the kids also go behind their mood. And sometimes some philosophy, she get bored easily. So would you please advise me a little bit how to make it more interesting for kids?
That's the question, how to make reading Bhagavatam. Well, I think it's best if you talk to some kids. Like here at ISV, there's lots of kids who grew up on Bhagavatam and are still reading it. So I think you should contact some of the devotees here who have been working with the kids programs and ask them about their realizations of how they raise their kids reading the Bhagavatam. Srivatsa Prabhu, you're still reading Bhagavatam all the time. You grew up with it. Maybe you could connect Champa Kalata to some of the devotees, devotee kids who have been reading since they were in the womb. And then you could give her some ideas. Does that sound okay? Okay. So here's your devotee. He'll help connect you to everybody. Hare Krishna. You're doing great service. Keep up the great work, Champakalata Saki Devidasi. And now I thank everyone for taking your valuable, precious time to come to this seminar, which is a heartfelt seminar to make ISKCON better in all ways. We're really only as good as how much we're getting a taste for hearing and chanting collectively. So the more we can encourage ourselves and others to study and go deeply within Prabhupada's books, the more we'll be successful in ISKCON collectively. I'd like to thank also Tapana Mishra Prabhu from the global, who's the head of the Global Duty Office and also the Ministry of Education. His involvement there has prompted us to do this seminar, and I thank all the devotees who worked tirelessly to put together this seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining our seminar and kindly giving us your attention. We'd love to get your feedback. Please let us know what you think. We have souvenirs, merchandise, and more information available from the show at beasage.co. Thanks again, farewell, and please keep the transcendental vibration going. Hare Krishna.
Page by page, be a sage. Page by page, be a sage.
From an ancient age to the world today, align your mind and heart, be a sage.
Page by page, be a sage. Page by page, be a sage.
The books are the base, to illuminate the dark, fan the spark, be a sage. Page by page, be a sage. Brighten up your life, be a sage. Page by page, be a sage. Fan the spark, be a sage.
Page by page, be a sage. Page by page, be a sage. Page by page, be a sage. Page by page, be a sage.
Thank you very much, everybody. Keep the transcendental vibration going and read Srila Prabhupada's books every day. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpadrishcha kripasundabhevacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha nantakoti vaishnaviniki jai gaur premanande Haribo. Can everyone unmute and say Hare Krishna?
160 people.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you so much.